Have you ever spent £4 on a bathroom cleaner that left streaks, then watched it sit under your sink half-used whilst the grout stayed grey? That frustration is not an accident. Cleaning product manufacturers, Unilever, Reckitt and Coleman and their competitors, deliberately replaced an entire household knowledge system with branded single-use products after 1955, and the replacement has never performed as well. Modern food chemistry and materials science has since confirmed what British women already knew. Sodium bicarbonate's pH buffering action, its mild abrasive properties, and its capacity to neutralize odors are documented biochemistry, not folklore. Every method in this video costs under 30 pence. Several cost nothing at all. To understand where this knowledge came from and why it was taken from you have to go back to the British kitchen of 1940. The soap ration had arrived, the proprietary cleaner had vanished from the grocer's shelf, and one small cardboard box was about to become the most sophisticated household management system Britain ever produced. Number 35. In the stone larder of a terraced house in industrial North England, sometime in 1941, a housewife with her husband conscripted and her ration book almost spent placed a small open dish of dry bicarbonate of soda on the shelf beside the cold meat and the root vegetables. She replaced it each week. The larder absorbed the smell of raw fat and decaying vegetable matter and kept the food tasting clean. It cost a fraction of a penny. A Ministry of Food leaflet from the same period confirmed that odor management in food storage was a genuine health priority. She had solved it with chemistry she did not name but understood completely. Number 34. That same damp cloth she used on the worktop carried a pinch of bicarb across the stone sink each morning. The mild abrasive action lifted grease and mineral deposits from the ceramic without scratching the glaze, without soap, without the proprietary scouring powder unavailable since rationing tightened in 1942. The surface came clean. It always came clean. She had no choice but to learn this, and in having no choice, she learned something the chemists would confirm 30 years later. Number 33. When the milk jug turned sour between uses, and in a house with no refrigeration it did, she dissolved a teaspoon of bicarb in cold water, poured it into the enamel jug and left it for 10 minutes. The alkaline solution neutralized the lactic acid bonded to the interior. She rinsed it. The smell was gone. Number 32. On wash day, always Monday, always beginning before 7, she added a single teaspoon of bicarb to the wash tub to soften the hard water coming through the pipes. Older women recalled this reduced soap flakes needed by a meaningful amount, stretching a weekly budget measured in shillings rather than pounds. Domestic science manuals of the period noted the chemical logic. Sodium bicarbonate raises pH, which inhibits the calcium and magnesium ions that prevent soap from lathering. She knew the result, and here is where the first layer opens, because what was happening in that terraced house was also happening in grammar school classrooms across Yorkshire. A domestic science teacher, her name held in Board of Education files of the period, was handing printed method cards to her pupils through the late 1930s and into the 1940s. The sequence was precise: dry application first, then damp activation, then rinse, then dry buff. The school taught it, the home confirmed it, and for one generation the two reinforced each other perfectly. Number 31. The girls brought method cards home. Their mothers, already using bicarb from necessity, adopted the formalized sequences their daughters had been taught. When a woolen blanket grew musty between seasons, dry bicarb was sprinkled across the surface, left for an hour, then beaten out in the yard. The mustiness lifted. The wool fibers were preserved from the water damage a full wash would have caused. Number 30. The cast iron pan required different handling. Bicarb paste, bicarb and water mixed to the consistency of soft clay, applied with a cloth in circular motions across the carbonized residue from the previous night's cooking, then rinsed clean. The seasoning protecting the iron was not stripped. The burnt matter came away. The pan lasted decades. Number 29. On boil wash day, half a cup of bicarb went into the load with the soap flakes when pillowcases had yellowed. The alkaline environment boosted the whitening action of the hot water and soap together. The pillowcases came out white, genuinely white, the yellow completely gone, not the artificial blue-white that optical brighteners in later detergents would produce. Number 28. On Sunday evenings, the leather work shoes went into the cupboard with dry bicarb poured inside them. By morning, the perspiration acids had been absorbed. The leather kept its integrity. The shoes lasted years longer than shoes managed any other way. Cost, nothing beyond the box already in the kitchen. And here is the first twist. The irony was total. Deprivation had built a system more complete than any product catalogue. A mass observation household survey conducted between 1943 and 1947 recorded the self-reported cleaning methods of British housewives, and bicarb appeared throughout, not as a celebrated technique but as a passing note, a thing so obvious it barely warranted mention. That near invisibility was already a warning that no one had learned to read. By 1948, the war was over, but the knowledge had survived, and it was spreading. Number 27. In Birmingham, health visitor case files from the early 1950s recorded household conditions across the city's terraced streets. Where mold was a seasonal problem, and in damp autumn in the industrial Midlands it was recurring, a thin paste of bicarb was being painted onto the edges of wooden windowsills each October, left to dry to a white powder across winter, and wiped off in spring. The mold that had blackened the sills in previous years was not present. The health visitor noted the absence of the problem. She did not record the method that had prevented it. Number 26. When the first post-war babies arrived, the enamel baby bath was cleaned between uses with bicarb on a damp cloth, leaving no chemical residue, no bleach smell, nothing a child's skin would later encounter. Half a teaspoon dissolved in the bathwater buffered its pH and made it gentler on infant skin. Safe because it was simple. Number 25. The teacups used daily for 20 years accumulated the brown tannin ring that washing up liquid never quite shifted. A damp cloth with bicarb, moved in circular motion inside the cup, lifted the stain without abrading the glaze. The cups lasted the full 20 years, longer. Number 24. A feather eiderdown that had lost its loft over a damp winter could not easily be washed in a household without a large enough copper. Bicarb was sprinkled across the surface during the spring outdoor airing, beaten through, left an hour, then beaten out. The loft returned. The mustiness lifted. Dry cleaning cost a sum representing a significant portion of a weekly household budget. The bicarb method cost nothing. Word was not spreading through packaging. It was spreading through women standing next to each other at the WI meeting, passing home skills bulletins between neighbours, comparing notes at the allotment gate. A county organiser in the early 1950s, her name in WI Federation minute books, circulated bicarb methods across domestic surfaces to households throughout her district. Women's weekly household columns of the same period carried the same information. The knowledge had never been more widely held. Number 23. The first domestic refrigerators arrived in British homes in the early 1950s, expensive and faintly mysterious in their compressor hum. An open dish of dry bicarb placed inside neutralized both the mechanical smell and the food odors accumulating between cleanings. Some early fridge instruction leaflets noted this directly. 1 teaspoon of bicarb renewed monthly. Number 22. Minor kitchen burns, the momentary contact with a hot pan edge, were treated with cool water first, always, then a damp bicarb paste pressed onto the affected skin. The alkaline pH soothed the localized inflammation. Standard home first aid in the years before an NHS appointment became the first reflex rather than the last. Number 21. The cotton apron worn daily accumulated grease spots the weekly wash alone did not always shift. Dry bicarb applied directly to the grease spot and left for 30 minutes allowed the alkaline powder to begin breaking down the fat through partial saponification, as modern chemistry confirms, brushed away before washing. No proprietary pre-treatment required. Number 20. The oven interior, with its carbonized fat baked onto the walls across months of use, was treated on the last Friday of every month. Thick bicarb paste applied to the cold walls and left overnight. Wiped away with a damp cloth in the morning. The carbonized residue came with it. No caustic fumes, no warning label. Then the companies arrived. By 1953, branded cleaning powders were appearing in new self-service shops. ITV launched in 1955. And between the programs, a new authority entered the British sitting room, the advertisement. Ajax, Flash, each one promised scientific superiority. Each arrived in bright packaging that made the cardboard bicarb box look precisely as old-fashioned as the companies needed it to look. A daughter watching television asked her mother to buy the product. The mother knew her method worked. The product did not work better. It just looked newer. Number 19. Silver cutlery darkened with tarnish was cleaned with bicarb paste on a damp cloth, rubbed along the grain of the silver, rinsed, dried immediately. The tarnish lifted without the caustic silver dip chemicals that proprietary products contained, chemicals that eventually thinned the silver plating they claimed to protect. The bicarb preserved the metal. Number 18. A slow drain was unblocked with 2 tablespoons of bicarb poured in first, followed by 2 tablespoons of vinegar. The fizzing reaction between the alkaline bicarb and the acetic acid broke down the grease and soap scum in the upper pipe. A full kettle of boiling water poured after. The drain ran clear. Number 17. The thermos flask carried to work each morning was cleaned by dissolving a teaspoon of bicarb in warm water, shaking it inside, rinsing thoroughly. The tannin staining lifted. The vacuum seal interior lost its stale smell. The flask lasted years in continuous daily use, but here is the second twist. Because it cost nothing and took seconds, no one thought to write it down. The mass observation day in the life diaries of 1950 recorded bicarb in passing notes buried in ordinary domestic days. Not as a system, never as a system, just as a detail, the way a person might mention breathing. Because it was never written down as a system, it could be dismantled piece by piece without anyone noticing the architecture being lost. Number 16. The horsehair mattress in the main bedroom accumulated perspiration over months. In summer, when it could be aired outside, dry bicarb was scattered across the surface and left for 2 hours, then beaten off. The perspiration acids were neutralized. The mattress smelled of nothing. Around 1958, the bicarb system had reached its fullest expression inside the British home. A BBC Home Service Woman's Hour broadcast of the mid to late 1950s, the scripts held in the BBC written archives, included domestic bicarb methods among its household guidance, reaching millions of households across Britain. The system was everywhere, and it was entirely invisible. Number 15. The new Formica worktops arriving in modernized kitchens of the late 1950s were marketed as requiring specialist synthetic surface cleaners. A bicarb paste on a damp cloth cleaned Formica without scratching or dulling the surface. The marketing said otherwise. The marketing won. Number 14. Before disposable nappies arrived on British shelves, the cotton nappy needed a final rinse addressing the ammonia smell of dried urine. Bicarb dissolved in the rinse water neutralized the ammonia compounds, causing both the smell and the nappy rash that followed repeated skin exposure. A chemical solution to a chemical problem. Free. Number 13. Mild heartburn was treated at home with half a teaspoon of bicarb dissolved in half a glass of cold water. The alkaline solution neutralized excess stomach acid within minutes. The NHS has since confirmed this as pharmacologically valid. Branded antacid tablets arrived on pharmacy shelves and did the same thing at a price that bicarb never required. Number 12. A pinch of bicarb in vase water slowed bacterial growth at the stem end of cut flowers through pH adjustment, extending their life by approximately 2 days. Enough in households where flowers were a considered purchase from the market stall to matter considerably. Progress arrived, and it was efficient, and it took everything. The Newsom Report of 1963 reshaped the curriculum for girls in secondary education. Domestic science, the subject carrying the practical chemistry of household management from teacher to pupil to home for 3 decades, was being downgraded across state secondary schools through the mid to late 1960s. The method cards stopped being printed. A generation of girls left school without having been taught what their grandmothers had known entirely by hand. Number 11. The brown staining inside a teapot used daily for years was removed by filling it with boiling water and 2 tablespoons of bicarb, leaving it for 20 minutes rinsing. The tannin deposits dissolved. The teapot lasted decades. Number 10. The wardrobe where woolen clothes were stored between seasons accumulated a compound smell, damp wool, camphor from the mothballs, the faint memory of a previous winter. An open dish of dry bicarb on the shelf, replaced monthly, absorbed all of it. The wardrobe smelled of nothing. The clothes inside smelled clean. Number 9. A mouth ulcer was treated with bicarb dissolved in warm water as a mouth rinse. The alkaline solution buffered the acidic environment that irritated the tissue and slowed healing. NHS guidance of the period confirmed the validity of alkaline mouth rinses for this purpose. The proprietary antiseptic mouthwashes that later replaced this practice contained alcohol, which irritated the tissue they claimed to protect. Then, the corner shop began to change. Number 8. Perspiration stains on the underarm of a cotton blouse. The acid compounds that yellowed the cotton even after washing were treated with bicarb paste applied directly to the fabric and left for an hour before washing. The alkaline paste broke down the acid compounds through a process textile chemistry confirms. The stain did not return. Number 7. Chrome taps dulled with limescale and watermarks were cleaned with a damp cloth, and a small amount of bicarb moved in circular motions across the surface. The dulling lifted without scratching the metal. Proprietary chrome polish existed on the shop shelf at several shillings per tin. It was not needed. Number 6. A wooden chopping board that had absorbed meat and onion juices and turned grey at the grain was scrubbed with a paste of bicarb and lemon juice worked into the wood. The surface was deodorized and lightened, food-safe afterwards. No chemical residue, nothing transferring to the food prepared on it the following morning. Number 5. In the garden where the children played and the bees worked the runner beans, an insect sting was treated immediately with damp bicarb paste pressed onto the site. Bee and ant venom is acidic. The alkaline bicarb neutralized the compounds responsible for the burning and inflammation. Relief came within minutes. A tube of antihistamine cream required a trip to the chemist. The bicarb was already in the kitchen. By the late 1960s, corner shops that had stocked bicarb alongside flour and salt were being displaced by supermarket own-brand cleaning ranges expanding through every high street. Bicarb was not disappearing from shelves, but it was being reclassified, moved from the grocery section to the baking aisle, reframed as a cake ingredient rather than a household tool. The system became invisible a second time, not forgotten, reclassified out of domestic consciousness. Number 4, a liquid spill on the carpet, tea, milk, an overturned cup, was treated immediately with dry bicarb poured directly onto the wet area. The powder absorbed the moisture and the odor before either had time to penetrate the carpet fibers and bond to them. Left to dry, then brushed away. No stain. Carpets managed this way lasted 15 years and more. Number 3, the cast iron grates of the gas hob accumulated carbonized residue across weeks of cooking. They were removed, placed in a basin of hot water with 2 tablespoons of bicarb and left to soak overnight. In the morning, the carbonized matter lifted away cleanly. No caustic spray, no fumes. The grates went back onto the hob. Number 2, a mild eczema flare, the dry, inflamed skin appearing on inner arms in winter, in households where heating was unreliable and the air was dry, was managed with a lukewarm bath into which approximately 4 tablespoons of bicarb had been dissolved. The pH-buffered water soothed the disrupted skin barrier and reduced the inflammatory response. NHS archive guidance of the period confirms that alkaline bath therapy was recommended for this purpose. The prescription pad replaced it. The knowledge that had made the prescription unnecessary did not survive the transition, and here is what disappeared. Number 1, the system itself. The complete weekly rotation. Larder on Friday, wash tub on Monday, sink on Wednesday, shoes on Sunday, mattress in summer, oven on the last Friday of the month was not a collection of 35 separate tricks. It was a single knowledge architecture, built under rationing when no choice existed, proved across 25 years of continuous use, carried in the hands of women who had learned it from their mothers and their domestic science teachers and their neighbors at the WI meeting, and forgotten, precisely and completely, in the space between one generation and the next. By the early 1970s, bicarb sat in the baking aisle. The domestic science syllabus that had taught its household applications was gone from most state secondary schools. The women who had held the full working system in memory were in their 60s. Their daughters had not been taught. Somewhere in a modern kitchen, bright, clean, well-stocked, there are 17 different products under the sink. A spray for the bathroom, a spray for the kitchen, a gel for the oven, a powder for the drain. On the worktop sits a small cardboard box of bicarbonate of soda, bought for a recipe, unopened. The kitchen is immaculate. It has no idea what it's holding.